Afternoon. We will get started with continuing our budget study session. And my mic is not on. We'll try that again. Good afternoon. We'll get started with continuing our budget study session with outside agency request, and I will turn it over to Finance Director Debbie Pack.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Debbie Pack, Director of Finance. We are going to rush through these, I think, and all the agencies are on board. We have outside agencies today. Anything we don't finish up, we'll pull over to the next time. There are some slides at the end that I would go over, but I'm going to give them their opportunity to speak first. And they have an order. We're going to go in that order. And then if you have questions, we can certainly address those as we go along, or we can save those for the end. We can set aside a few minutes. So without further ado, I'm going to let Salina Grace come up and introduce themselves.
Before we get started, do we have a time limit? Because we've had times where the last two haven't got their full time.
I have asked them to keep it to 15 minutes or less, but
Okay.
in calculating that time, that might not give everybody enough time. So some of them have promised me they're much less than that.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Young.
Good afternoon. Chad Young, Executive Director at Salina Grace. Thankful to be here. Don't know if we have our slide or not, but here to address an issue that nobody in our community likes, and that's homelessness. It's a tough subject. And so our goal at Salina Grace is to start addressing these issues by bringing in resources to help our homeless neighbors. If we could advance to the second slide. Thank you. So as we start talking about homelessness in Salina, I wanted to give you some quick statistics. First of all, the leading contributing factor to homelessness is poverty. Most people don't think about that, but it's actually the leading, most common denominator is poverty. The next in line is substance abuse, which affects about 60% of our homeless population. And then we have mental illness affecting 43% of our homeless population. And of course, lack of healthy, affordable housing is a big issue here in our community. Oftentimes we have individuals that were working on finding housing, but trying to find housing within their budget is definitely a difficult task this day and age. As we go on looking at homelessness in Salina, I want to make sure everybody understands it. This past year, there were 998 different individuals that stayed in one of our shelters here in Salina. That's just in 2023. The problem of homelessness is a lot bigger than many think it is. As we begin looking at what can we do to help our homeless neighbors and address this situation, the first thing that Salina Grace does is we provide life-saving emergency winter shelter. In 2023-2024 season, we sheltered 129 different individuals over the winter. That was 76 men, 52 women, and 1 child. And I want to add to that this is a low barrier shelter. Our whole goal at Salina Grace is to remove the barriers that keep people from getting the help they need. And so by providing a low barrier shelter, oftentimes we get to help those who might be somewhat intoxicated or wrestling with their addictions, or maybe they struggle with staying at the mission because we have so many people at the mission. We give them an opportunity to have another place of shelter by doing that. And that gets people off the street and makes our community safer by providing those services. As I mentioned earlier, poverty is the number one most common denominator in homelessness. Here in Saline County, we have a population of 53,000 people. And according to the U.S. Census Bureau, 12% or 6,914 people here in our community are living beneath the poverty level. That is, they're struggling to make ends meet day after day, week after week, and they're one catastrophe away from possibly losing their housing. So there are a lot of people living on the edge in our community, and we need to bring forward resources to them to help them stay in their housing, not just address homelessness, but also keep people in the housing. And so this year we moved the Community Resource Center from 142 South 7th to 315 South Broadway. And there in the Community Resource Center, we want to provide hot lunches, day shelter services, application assistance, ID assistance, and we provide a community navigator. And all of these resources are immediately available to anybody who walks into the shelter. Once again, we're trying to remove barriers. We're trying to make it easy for people to access these services so that they can get the help that they need. So we have a few pictures of the inside of the resource center here. That's the front desk area where someone first checks in. It's a security desk. They check in, and this helps us to keep good data as they check in. We're learning more about them. We're asking questions about where they're from, where did you sleep last night, and we're gaining information and data on our population that we're trying to serve. But also we're trying to make it a safe place. They have to pass through a metal detector so that we can ensure that everybody stays safe in the resource center. If you go on to the next slide, you can see we also have a computer lab set up so that individuals coming to us can be able to get online, look for jobs online, look for housing online, check emails, and do anything else online that they might need to do right there from that location. And they can even write resumes and print out things that they need there. So we're providing that resource to our individuals. There at our day shelter here, you can see people gathering for lunch. We served more than 16,000 meals through the resource center this past year, making sure people have the substance they need to keep on living as we help them and move forward towards trying to bring resources to them to try to help them move forward in life. And we do most of this through volunteers. We have a lot of wonderful volunteers that play a role in helping to serve that community, and it helps us to keep our costs down as much as possible. So within the Community Resource Center, this past year we served 682 different individuals, and of those, 449 individuals we are able to help in assisting filling out applications. And when I say filling out applications, that's a broad spectrum. It could be helping people fill out job applications, housing applications, food assistance applications, applications to get their birth certificate, social security card, and so forth. That's one of the most utilized resources we offer at the Resource Center, is helping people to fill out these applications so that they can get the services that they need. And over the past year, if you keep it back to that last slide, and over the past year, we helped 49 people in our community get off the streets and into shelter or a housing program. As people come in, our main goal is that we get them to work with our community navigator. And our community navigator acts as a conduit to help our people get to the agencies and assistance that they need, working with health care, substance use treatment, shelter, financial assistance, employment, food security, housing, mental health care, and so forth. Our goal is to be an advocate and to walk alongside people to make sure that they're not falling through the cracks and they are actually getting the help that they need. So as you can see, this is our model for our collaborative care. and this is what we offer to our community and those who are in need. And I want to talk just real quickly about the summary of benefits, and then I'll pause to ask for any questions. As far as benefits go, we're a resource for law enforcement. There were 67 calls this past year that the dispatch received from calls from people out in Brookville and other areas around the county. And what the sheriff's office does is they go out into those areas and they bring them into Salina. Well, where are they going when they get dropped off here in Salina? Well, somebody needs to be ready to engage them with services and try to do something productive. And that's what we're trying to do, is something productive to help people keep moving forward. Furthermore, we don't want officers to play the role of social service agents. We want to be the people that we are helping them to do that, and getting people off the streets and in stable, encouraging environments. We are a resource for those struggling with mental illness. Approximately 45% of our homeless are struggling with mental illness. We are partnering with Central Kansas Mental Health Center to help this group, and they will be having offices within the new resource center here shortly. And finally, of course, we are a resource for those who are at risk of becoming homeless, trying to make sure citizens are able to stay in their homes and prevent them from ever having to face the streets. So what's the value to Salina? Well, the cost of one homeless individual per year has been assessed at $35,000 a year per person per year per community. With 998 known homeless individuals in our community, I mean, that could raise up to $34,930,000 a year in cost on our community through the resources that our homeless folks use in our community. So doing nothing is costly. Doing nothing is costly. And we're doing our best to try to help people get the resources they need to get out of homelessness. Our budget for this coming fiscal year is $515,000. And our request from the city of Salina is to partner with us in helping our community address the problems of homelessness through contributing $90,000 towards our efforts. And with that, I will allow the commission to ask any questions you might desire to ask.
I had one, the point in time homeless count back in January. What was that number?
We still do not have that number yet.
Really?
Yes.
Topeka and Wichita got their
interesting?
numbers.
Well,
That's really a Chad or Salina Grace thing, and the city staff is engaging with that as well. We're anxiously awaiting the number. The state has to,
The state has a process to kind of vet all that data and release it, and ours hasn't been
I
released.
think it's federal.
You could be
It
right.
is.
Yep.
yes.
Any questions for Mr. Young? Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Next up is Salina Tennis.
Mr. Renfro.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Clark Renfro, President of Salina Tennis Alliance, and with me is Brian Van Kuren, who's our Executive Director. Slides, while we're waiting for that, I'll just start off. We'll have a few pictures of our facility and kind of where we are to date, and talk a little bit about what we've accomplished this past our first full year in operation, and kind of where we are year to date and our vision going forward. Okay, okay. I almost need it.
You
I've
one?
got my slides here, but I'll take a copy if you got.
There you go.
So, first slide there is just an overhead shot after it was first completed this past year. We opened up February of 2023. The latter part of that month was our official opening, and then we had a grand opening later that summer. But again, everything has fallen into place in terms of the look and feel and what we were looking to accomplish with the facility. Fits right in with downtown, and we're right in the heart of the city. That next slide is we had the mural project commit to doing a mural on the back of the hitting wall, which turned out phenomenal. The Queen Andrea was an artist from New York City and did a mural with the We're Better Together mural, which turned out fantastic. That's a group picture of Central and South tennis team, girls tennis team. Next slide. So we are focused on, as we present our tennis to the community, we believe in the power of sports to change lives. We really do feel we're better together. This was, as you all know, a public-private partnership between the City of Salina, the school district, and the private section represented by the Salina Tennis Alliance. So could not have happened without those three entities, and certainly the objective was to include the entire community to come together and have a uniform, formal approach to growing the game of tennis and provide a venue for people to enjoy that. STA's mission, grow the game of tennis, provide families, youth, and adults affordable access to high-quality tennis facilities and programming. Again, there's more pictures included here. Certainly the proximity to the Community Events Center at TPEC. You'll notice the old municipal swimming pool building, which is now what we call the tennis building. And then there's a picture in there that is of the 5A state tennis tournament that was held in October of '23, and that's a picture from the opening ceremonies, but tremendous attendance, and I'll touch on that a little bit later in the presentation. But Salina had not hosted a state tennis tournament in over 20 years just due to the declining facilities and not having the capacity to do that, and we were able to pull that off in the first year, and we're looking forward to bringing more of that to Salina, both for the boys and girls. Next slide is our highlights, and I'll just, as you've got it in front of you, but I'll cover it for the audience as well. As I stated, February we opened the facility. 5A state was held in October. We had over 25 teams, over 72 players participated, and we had over 300 fans from all across the state watch the two-day competition. I know many of you were out there to see that, and appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, it was cold, right?
It was cold.
Yeah.
But it could have been colder, so you got to take what you can get. Local middle school and high school girls and boys had over 20 events in 2023. Both in the spring and the fall, with over 800 combined participants. The ITA NAI Central West tournament was held in September, and that was hosted by Kansas Wesleyan, which is a really major college event that was held here. We had over 250 men and women compete in that. We also, not in this handout, but Kansas Wesleyan had the singles finalist in the men's competition, which was a big deal. Bryce Ware was a finalist. The Wesleyan men and women had 4 tournaments in the spring with over 100 participants. We had multiple USTA League tournaments held throughout the spring and summer. In USTA League tournaments, those are men and women that Salina has a team. Wichita usually has multiple teams, Topeka, and they compete in the Missouri Valley USTA league format, which is a nice event. And we've got people all the way from ages 21 to 80 playing in those, both men and women. It's a neat event. We had Special Olympics programming out, and they utilize those courts on a regular basis. And then we had clinics and instruction made available for the youth and adults. And then back to the 5A state, Central and South had both teams there, which was cool. And Central ended up girls taking runner-up, which was a nice bonus too. So it was a good event. We're looking, like I said, to host more of those. The next slide is just a picture of what we're currently hosting or partnering with the city with what we call Match Point Tennis Camp, and Brian and his crew are actively doing that. So the summer programming is off and running for the community. And one of the things that we had in our initial objective was to bring tennis to kids and adults that didn't necessarily have access through a private club or a particular entities that had that. So as a nonprofit, we believe we're meeting that objective. Next slide, just have in there, tennis continues to grow both regionally and nationally. There was a report out, and this is from the USTA, shows the growth in tennis over the past roughly 9 years, and we continue to see that growth going upward. Kansas is in the USDA section. There's 16 sections in the United States. Kansas is in the Missouri Valley section, which is Kansas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Missouri, and Iowa. And they had the second largest growth in participation this past year. So we see that continuing in the Midwest and in our areas. The tennis continues to grow and be a viable sport. 2025 and beyond, we are in the process with partnering with the city, updating the bathrooms in the tennis building, so those are nearing completion. And again, that's been they look really nice, and I know there's some finishing touches going on right now that will allow us to host bigger events and get people in there as opposed to having to use TPEC. We've also got newly created sidewalks and pathways, again, compliments of the city. And we continue to enhance our youth and adult programming. We've got more tournaments on the horizon, both schools, colleges, high schools, USTA, Missouri Valley tournaments, and we're continuing to look for ways to enhance the amenities out there with shading and some other things that we're working on as well. Again, continue to grow the game and bring it to the masses. Next slide. One of our objective was to bring tennis to the community. This is a slide that we had, which was at the YMCA Youth Day this past spring, and we're able to reach out and get some people acclimated to kind of what we were doing, what we were trying to accomplish, and the opportunities that were available to youth and adults at Salina Tennis Alliance. Next slide is just kind of the before and after of the tennis building. If you look at that, it really looks nice, and I think compliments to Mike and the staff there, Jeff, on addressing that building and getting that up to snuff. Next couple slides are just pictures of our website, what we do from an administrative standpoint, allowing folks throughout the community to get access to courts. The courts are free, but you can reserve courts if you have an event or a special gathering that you want to get courts, so you have that availability. And you can also check that website to see when the courts are available, if someone has them for practice, which the schools use during the spring and fall. So really nice, and as well as you can check out programming options available. This last slide is just our operating budget from this past year. Keep in mind, this is our first year under our belt. We're still getting traction on how this is going to look and feel. This first year, we were granted $40,000. It was a shortened year due to some unforeseen circumstances with our director, we had to shift gears midsummer, and we didn't really get a full start on that until midsummer, and Brian and his team came in and did a yeoman's work of finishing out the summer. So we didn't necessarily have a full year. I know this request is for 2025 or 2024 funding. We had met with Mike and his staff and maybe looking at a reduction for this year based upon we didn't have a full year in 2023, so using some of that money potentially in 2024. But our request for this year, or for 2025, is 40,000. And this kind of talks about, you know, our expenses and our revenues and how that matches up to what we're asking for and what we're currently dealing with. And then just the last slide is just a picture in the evening. Again, these are courts that are available throughout the day and night, and they get plenty of action, and it's been a nice, I think, addition to that area. So appreciate the chance to come out and visit with you. And I don't know, again, this is our first time in this process. Do we answer questions, or?
Sure. I might add one clarification. As Clark mentioned, we kind of assessed how 2023 went and then agreed to an offset in 2024. I think we'll have the opportunity to have a similar conversation at the end of 2024 headed into 2025. So they're asking for the same amount of funds that were initially authorized at the $40,000 level, and we just continue to have conversations about how things get rolled out here as we kind of get the process more standardized, I guess.
You said the restroom in the tennis building still had some things to do. They're not finished yet?
We've been struggling with some of the color issues with the epoxy floor that we put down, so staff's been dealing with the manufacture those epoxy floors, but we're going to...
They're all functional, though.
Yeah, there may be some items left to install that we're trying to get an answer out of the manufacturer of the epoxy floor so that we don't impact their response to the color issue, but we're on the verge of being able to open those up.
Oh, so they're not open?
I honestly haven't checked recently. The last conversation I had was about 3 weeks ago.
They are not. We're waiting for the green light from the city to do that. But as of when Jeff left, that was not open yet.
Yeah, the other ones that were previously the concession stand are, and we're trying to wrap up the epoxy issues on the other.
And what is your website address? You quoted the website here.
Do you know our website address?
Yeah, it's Salina.
Yeah, step up to the podium.
It's salinatennis.com.
Easy enough. Any questions?
The tennis camp you're running is obvious, began June 5th. How many participants do you have registered in that? Because I noticed you had 3 different age groups.
As of right now, we are sitting at 25 individuals, 12 for the 4 through 7 year olds, 10 through the 8 through 11, and then 3 for the 12 through 18 at the moment. So it's really gone really well, smoothly. We had 2 days so far. The kids are having a blast. We're having a blast doing it as well.
Sorry, could you state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Brian Van Kuren. I also am the head tennis coach at Kansas Wesleyan University.
Thank you.
Just one question. Where do you anticipate the scholarship money coming from, and what would be the purpose of those funds?
Yeah, the scholarship commissioner is looking for through donations. And so we've got some donors currently lined up that have indicated their interest to help fund part of that. So that's, and our approach on how that will be used, we're going to have to come up with a criteria that allows how that will be used and funded. But I see that coming into play relatively soon. So I will note too that part of the the programming that we just started this week, some of those youngsters came from this the YMCA Youth Day that had their parents had talked to Brian and myself and were not familiar with tennis or how that worked, and we're getting that connection, and it's nice to see that come into fruition.
And just one other question. Did your estimates for revenue from court fees, lessons, et cetera, for 23 come close to what you had budgeted?
Yeah, relatively so. Yeah,
Okay.
they did. Yes. And I think that was part of the success with the events that we had coming in, and also our partnership with the school district as well as Kansas Wesleyan.
Okay.
So when you hosted the 5A tournament, did Kasia pay a fee to host there? Or?
No, that's the challenge. So right now, when those venues are picked, it's pretty much up to the host to come up. And so, as also a coach and as part of the district, we had to go out and reach out to get some funding for that. And so, it's not something that is always favorable for the host school. But thanks to donations and the public and the city and everybody stepping up, it turned out to be a success.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Anything else?
Okay, thank you.
I hope Scott got that figured out. Next up is OCCK.
Miss Grinter and baby.
Yes. I made a promise to not make an appearance yet. Terrell Grinter, Director of Transportation for OCCK, and I've got Pat Walerius, who will be up here in just a second, to talk financials, because more than likely I will run out of breath, and nobody needs to be talking about money being out of breath. So we'll move to the next slide. Just a reminder of what our everyday vision and mission statement are for transportation. Really, it breaks down to valuing the passenger. Driven with commitment and respect, we venture out to ensure the independence of our passengers for all communities we serve. So pretty widespread, but our drivers, our leaders, our dispatchers, we all look out for how can we get the most appropriate and best access for our passengers to the community that we serve. Okay, next slide. A couple of success stories, and I'll read those. Jay, passenger, I chose to ride the bus because I couldn't afford to buy a car, and I lost my license. I'm able to get anywhere I need to be, and I don't have to worry about parking. So we were able to help this person on a couple of different levels. You might just not feel like changing the oil in your car, or you might need to save up that money. And our $2 bus fare, $35 month pass helps them get that access while they're waiting to save up those funds, or maybe it's a decision that they just don't want to have a car anymore. And we are seeing a few more of those choice riders here in the past year than we have in the past. C passenger recently told me when I was driving the green bus, not just the green bus, they're all green for CityGo, but the green route. So we were headed north of town. I moved from Montana, and this is the best run bus. I used the bus service back home, and the drivers here are way nicer than back home, and they help people better. So that was a huge compliment, and oftentimes we get a little tunnel vision. We think about our service, how can we do this, how can we do it? So being compared and that person opening up to their experience in other cities and not having it be a big city experience. Montana probably doesn't have a whole bunch of cities that are the size of Salina, but knowing that we are doing a great job in rural transportation definitely feels good from that passenger perspective. Next slide. Just a couple of snapshots from our past year. KU came out and did a safe roads study with us. So they taught us how to do a safe roads inspection. So we went out and we looked at sidewalk accesses, accessibility to people who might be vision or hearing impaired. Can they be accessible by walker, cane, or wheelchair? And then what does biking look like? What do the stop signs look like? what's the timing on the signals? Do the speed limits make sense? So if we're partnering public transit with road safety, pedestrian safety, bicyclist safety, all of that has to come together. So it's a truly amazing opportunity to get to learn from them. And our mobility manager, Michelle, has done a couple of walk audits, so you can expect more from her on those in the next coming year. And then just a couple of snaps from our drivers and some experiences we've had. We had a huge success story. Our trainer is doing amazing. She had 5 new driver trainees get their CDLs in 1 week. 2 weeks, sorry. One of them needed just a little bit longer, but they all passed on the first try, and they got it on their, it was just amazing. Usually it's a little nerve-wracking, so they get in there, they do the walk around, and the instructor maybe makes them feel a little bit nervous. They nailed it the first time, so it was a huge growth opportunity for us in how we're training drivers and their success on the field. So they've all been launched. They're all driving their buses now, either on CityGo or paratransit, and they're feeling super, super happy about that. Okay, next slide. All right, dive into our paratransit services. I put the last 3 years to the side there. This service continues to see a tremendous amount of growth regionally and specifically focused in Salina. So in 2021, we were at 36,000 rides. We just finished 2023 with 55,000 rides. You guys, that's amazing. People are getting the opportunity to access what they need. A lot of that paratransit is medical. A lot of that is medical, maybe getting to the dentist, getting to Salina Regional, and we do have some partnerships for that funding, but really it's getting access to people who maybe feel uncomfortable learning how to use the CityGo bus fixed route, or they might need a little extra time to get on that bus. They might need a little extra one-on-one care to get to where they need to go. And their personal care attendants can ride with them for free. So if you're getting to the doctor's office, or you're getting to bingo, or you get to the hairdresser and you need a little extra help paying, listening to the instructions, we've got you and your personal care attendant covered there. And it's at the very end, and I brought some extras because it's probably very small in how it printed. Every single year, we talk about what is our application process, so I'll talk a little bit about that at the very end. Okay, next slide. CityGo, making a huge comeback. COVID, of course, just it affected everything, but public transportation really got it. But we're coming back. It's looking super good. This past year, 228,000 rides, almost 229,000 rides here in Salina. So that is super, super amazing. We're seeing more ridership. We're getting a little bit closer to having more of that choice ridership where people don't have to absolutely take the bus. It's their only option. They're choosing to take it. They can leave their vehicle at home, freeing up parking, freeing up emissions, that type of thing. And then maybe being able to spend their money in a different way, maybe shopping downtown or spending it out eating with their family. Next slide. And then our regional fixed routes, Can Connect, we are super, super proud of that one. That is our partnership with Sunbelt Solomon, and that had 4,000 rides this past year, so a whole year. That was, if we count there and backs, that's over 2,000 shifts that we got workers to. And then our 81 connection, it is very heavily focused on employment in north central Kansas, connecting Salina all the way up to Belleville. A few people have used it to tour north central Kansas and just kind of experience something when they haven't been out of town for a while, and they don't have to worry about driving. Okay, next slide. Okay, and a breakdown of this ridership. So across the board, paratransit and CityGo and our fixed routes, we're at 26% employment. 26% of all those numbers that I just threw at you are going to a place that they work, they're going to get skills training, or they're maybe going to an interview, that type of thing. 41% is medical. So we are truly providing access to the medical care that people are needing. And then they're seeing more success in their healing rates, reentry rates. So it's a great program for everybody. We also take people to chiropractic care. We don't just take people to Salina Regional. We take people anywhere they are needing to go. 32%, and that's a pretty big number to just have lumped into miscellaneous. So if you guys ever need it broken down, I've got the data for you. We can absolutely do that. It's just a pretty heavy data pull, but that includes things like nutrition, education, residential visits. Maybe you're going, mom's coming to your house for the weekend. We take you on Friday, stays over the weekend and gets to go back home on Monday. Education could be trips to the library, nutrition could be trips to the grocery store and such, food bank, that type. Next. All right, the info sheet. So we do call it an info sheet instead of an application because it terrifies people when they see application on the top and they're like, great, what barrier am I gonna see when I'm done filling this out? And so we wanted to keep it open to access for anybody. So they fill out simple information and then some information about them and as they would be as a passenger. So do you use any of the following when you travel? Could be a manual wheelchair, powered wheelchair, service animal, oxygen tank. It just gives us a little snapshot. That's not an automatic qualifier or an automatic disqualifier. Just gives us a snapshot into how we can best take care of that person. And then are there times when someone accompanies you when you travel? If they mark yes, we are absolutely going to want to tell them about our personal care attendant policy. And if they mark no, we're still going to share that with them because maybe they don't know that they can have that support and we can wrap around them with those services. And then are you eligible for Medicaid? A lot of people don't know that they can use Medicaid for transportation services. It's already some credits that they get, and we can provide that access for them. And there's a lot of great providers here in Salina and in North Central Kansas. And then we go into the next section. We serve so many communities. The top information is good for everything that we give transportation for. It's nice to have an updated phone number. It's nice to have an updated email address. But when it comes to accessing CityGo or hopping on paratransit, we ask the following. Do you have a disability that limits your use of CityGo fixed route services? Yes, no, or sometimes. I don't need to know at this point what that disability is, and that's one more opportunity that we give to people that we're not making a barrier just because they're filling out a piece of paper. Can you use CityGo unless certain weather conditions exist? When I was driving this winter, somebody told me they love to ride. They can ride all through winter, but then as soon as summer hits, they have to use paratransit because of their illness, their type of disability. It's just not possible to sit for the 5 to 10 minutes that they're waiting on the bus to show up. And then we ask, how far can you travel? So this is just a very quick snapshot, and then we have a position in our office that then takes it the next step further. This gets the conversation started, and then we hop into how else can we best serve you. So recently we were able to accept and kind of tweak. Somebody needed to get to a workplace that wasn't quite on one of our fixed routes. So that automatically qualifies them for paratransit because our CityGo bus just doesn't go there, and it was about a mile and a half out from that. So they would take the CityGo bus as close as they could possibly get, and then they'd walk that extra mile. Right around the corner, if they took a different color bus, they would cut that extra mile in half. So then they'd only have to take a half a mile walk. But then in the case of severe weather, very cold, very hot weather, we are able to approve their application for paratransit to provide that support due to the length of time and length of distance outside of our CityGo routes. So that person didn't necessarily have a visual disability or a disability that we can see, but we were still able to provide that paratransit opportunity for them based on the structure of general public transportation. So I will pass it over to Pat, and while he comes up, do you guys have any questions about this part?
On the paratransit, is part of that, does hospitals still help fund part of the paratransit?
Yes, they do.
Through theirs, okay.
Yeah.
And when you said 72,000 total rides and 55,700 of those are focused in Salina, where are the others focused at?
All over North Central Kansas. So our paratransit on demand, it's easiest if we can like get them all under one big umbrella, but then we pull out for our conversation with you guys and our budgeting purposes with the city of Salina, only what people who live in Salina are affected by. So somebody who lives in Abilene might take a ride to get to the Quick Shop. That number is not included in that bolded number, that 55,000. But I do like to show you guys the whole perspective. We're everywhere all the time. And so that,
What's your total budget for paratransit then? Because you're looking at your form, you had 488,000. Do you know what your total percentage is?
we can team up.
The paratransit Salina projected expenses is 1.8 million. Now, what Terrell was talking about, we are probably, well, not probably, we are the most diverse provider, general public transportation provider within the state. We do, as Terrell was talking about, we do para, we do CityGo, we do non-emergency medical transportation. The long, good partnership we have with Salina Regional Health Center, we did the Medivan program. We do started in the early 2000s. Our non-emergency medical transportation through the MCOs in Kansas is basically we go statewide. We go the Kansas City KU. We go to Wichita. Now, one thing I want to emphasize that Charles said, and with this we send to Deb, we isolate and we costs and income by the service that we provide. Like Abilene is a separate item. We show income expense for Abilene, Concordia, 81 connection, the whole thing.
Yep.
So this is how we keep Salina, and obviously there's some Saline County involved. So that's,
Absolutely. And
that's pretty-
similar to how we're having this conversation, I have a similar conversation in Abilene for their funding pocket, Concordia for their funding pocket. So there's no crossover. What we're funding for the city of Salina is actually affecting the people who live and work in the city of Salina. Okay.
Okay.
Pat, can you state your name for the record?
I'm Patrick Wallerius. I'm OCCK's VP CFO. Our 2025 request is $963,000, which is a 2.77% increase from 2024, or about a $26,000 increase. I looked at the CPI for 2024, and it was 3.5%. We're a little over that, but very, very close. There's a lot of items. Inflation is still a factor. Benefits associated with staff is certainly a factor. So most of our increases would be related to staffing issues. Our starting wage for drivers, and they have to have a CDL license, is 17. If you look between the city and the county, that's a lot less than CDL drivers qualified within the Salina or the city or county. We are looking at that to try to increase that going into 2026, but I did not add any additional expenses associated with drivers and staffing in 2025. So that's about it. Questions?
I believe we
Go ahead.
discussed this last year about the option of you raising fees.
Right.
I believe it was a KDOT funding factor.
Right. It's really...
Is that still the same?
Commissioners, it's really what we submit an application to KDOT, our best estimate of what the costs are going to be. Then we deduct what KDOT requires. We deduct ridership fees or fees. Now, what that does, that takes it away from the grant. So it's kind of a catch-22. If we raise the fees, we're going to get less from KDOT. It kind of works out the same thing, but it is every fee that we increase is going to take away from the grant that we have from KDOT. Kind of a funny way of doing it, but it makes sense in some ways. So yeah.
I just had a question pertaining to the demographics, age demographics specifically. What percentage or approximate percentage of your clientele is retirement aged, elderly? Because
We don't keep demographics on that, but you might have a better idea than I
Yeah.
have.
It's probably over 30% elderly. We're pretty flexible with that, so 60 plus on our paratransit side, just because we have that little extra opportunity to ask them more personal details to provide the best service possible for them. On our CityGo side, we don't have data on that due to the general publicness. I can definitely pull that and send what information we do have in regards to the paratransit a little bit more specifically, but yeah. Something that we're looking forward to in the next few years, digging a little deeper into the elderly population and then also veteran population as well.
Well, and I think more specifically, what would be of interest to me, and I can't speak for the other commissioners, but the number of folks that are on there that strictly do not have any other options in terms of transportation, because I think that's a very vital
Absolutely.
component to us trying to decide how much.
Absolutely. Well, that, I mean, it's darn near 100%. The reason, so you mostly see that on CityGo. Paratransit is a little bit different because of those partnerships with Salina Regional. It's a little easier to say, hey, don't worry, I've got a ride. You don't need to take off. I've got a ride. I can call OCCK. But in regards to CityGo, the reason that curve during COVID didn't drop quite as far as it absolutely could have, and what other cities did see where like no one was on, and then we've been able to spring back. Yes, we're getting a little closer to that choice ridership, but right now every conversation that we have with passengers is they literally have no other option, or they did have an option and it fell through the cracks, or man, they can't get to the next paycheck to get that car to where they need to go, or they can't take a taxi because they don't have the dollars for a taxi, but they do have the $2, or they can save up using our digital fare. They can use that $2, every $2 that they buy each day. Once they've spent $35, that automatically triggers a monthly pass for them. So then we're not nickel and diming somebody that's already struggling to pay for a pass. It automatically takes that over. So that number, I can absolutely poll people in the next year and have a better answer for you next year, but it's darn near 100% on our CityGo.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So Pat, if I could, I do have one clarification. Your total request didn't change all that much, but the bus paratransit and the fixed route numbers changed pretty significantly. One going up and the other then going down.
That may be a function of how I split it out. So here's how I split it out, and I don't know if that's,
Yeah.
it was just based on percentages, I think.
Right. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's about the best way I can explain it, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So maybe that's a side conversation we need to have. I just want to make sure there isn't some rebound coming in the future with one of those numbers needing to catch up.
I understand, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be aware of any rebound or anything like that needing to catch up.
One thing happened in 2024 is when we increased drivers' wages from $16 to $17. We have considerably a lot more CityGo drivers than we have para. Of the total department's like 90 employees, and when we have 55, 60 of those are drivers. So the dollar increase certainly affected it.
Have you been able to stay fully staffed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you know anybody that wants to be a sub driver, send them my way. We'll train them with their CDL.
Yeah.
Woo. Yeah.
Any other questions? Better keep moving on here.
Okay, Commissioners, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, well,
Next on your schedule was SCEDO, but he did get called out to a meeting, so he will not be here. Next, we'll go to Salina Downtown E. Leslie and her bright
Ms. Bishop.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for allowing us to be here today. I will do my best to keep up with my slides. I tend to talk faster than the slides, so But I'd like to just start by saying that Salina Downtown Incorporated, we're deeply invested in our community, and we're driven by a passion to create a vibrant and welcoming downtown experience for everyone. And of course, our mission is to bring culture, the arts, and people together in a space that fosters connection and celebration. That is a huge goal of ours, to make downtown Salina the city's neighborhood. Our work is essential in nurturing an environment where entrepreneurs and small businesses can thrive and follow their dreams. We're passionate about the people of Salina, and our dedicated team, myself, April, and Diane, we're continually trying to strive to enhance and expand our downtown. And we recognize that our transformation is far from complete, but we've made great strides in the last several years. I'd like to highlight a couple of things in '23. We had a Small Business Appreciation Week gift card promotion that was highly successful, brought in $10,850 into downtown. That money went directly to our downtown businesses. We had our first ever back to school bash that it was open to the public, but it was primarily focused to the students of Kansas Wesleyan, Salina Area Tech, and K-State Salina. It was honestly the hottest day of the year. Heat index was, I don't know what it was.
113.
Yeah. But we still had 100 students come and enjoy an afternoon of live music, a food truck, yard games. We had the largest ever parade of lights with over 120 entries. We won't go beyond that this year. Of course, we attended our quarterly training with Kansas Main Street. Diane and I went to San Diego for a Farm and Art Market conference, and April and I went to Boston for the Main Street Now conference. We also did our first ever Downtown Dough promotion, and that brought in a whopping $184,000 directly into downtown. It was a great, it couldn't have gone better. And then, of course, we also improved our website. If you go to our website now, it's colorful, we have a brand, and we're also getting lots of comments from people that it's so much easier to read, and we're really proud of the way it looks, and it's interactive, and anyway, we're really enjoying our new website.
What's your address?
salinadowntown.org. In '23, we also added 8 additional hanging baskets to our already existing baskets, so they look beautiful. They're up now for '24. We also planted 47 pots in downtown Salina, power washed the tunnels, the breezeways, arcades. We kept up with our security cameras and worked closely with the Salina Police Department, providing footage to them when needed. We also increased the enhancement, or the Spillman Plaza enhancement, by adding 2 large flower pots, and we're going to be placing our red umbrellas in that. We just have to get some of the unhoused activity in that plaza better controlled. We also completed 2 trash corral art projects, one behind our office, off of 7th Street, behind Barillo Grill, and then also one behind Phillips Plaza, KU Med, Blue Sky. Made a huge impact, lots of compliments from the community. We're also planning to do 2 more this year. And then we also introduced downtown-specific gift cards, meaning that they are only used in downtown Salina, can only be used in downtown Salina. And we have brought in over $30,000 of downtown gift certificates, and they just went into effect in September of last year, and here we are in '24. So those have been really successful, and they act like a check for the downtown businesses. They deposit into their bank, and we have seen great success by implementing those. It helps too for those people that they don't quite know what gift to get, and they can come to our office, buy a gift, and then the receiver can use it anywhere in downtown Salina. We also received our 2024 Main Street accreditation through Kansas Main Street. It's the 3rd year in a row. We submitted our application first go around, no questions asked, and we received that again. We're proud of that. In the Main Street world, that's really important. We get lots of support both on the national level and through the state of Kansas. In 2024, we're we're just checking it off. We're still doing our Downtown Good Neighbor Awards. April and I attended an amazing Main Street Now conference in Alabama. We did our gift card promotion, and the biggie, our downtown Salina Farm and Art Market. I cannot thank the staff of Salina Downtown, the committee that we put together, the vendors. We can't do that without our vendors, and of course the city of Salina for working with us. It has been the most amazing experience thus far. We've had every Saturday, we've had 4 Saturdays. All of our vendors have either sold out or left with just a handful of items left. I wanted to share a couple of comments that we've heard that downtown Salina's Farm and Art Market downtown is my best and my most favorite Saturday activity. The best part is seeing the camaraderie between our community and smiling faces and getting fresh, tasty food. And it is wonderfully different than any other farm and art market that this person has attended. It's vibrant, very well organized, and she will be here every Saturday. That's just 4 weeks of this farm and art market. We have community guests that come and join us. Salina Arts and Humanities has been with us. Salina Family Health Center has been with us. The Rolling Hills Zoo. And then OCCK will be coming. We have Salina Kansas Mental Health, just to name a few, DVAC. And it's a place for those agencies to come and share what their mission is to the community for people who may not know. And then we also have a really wonderful little kids area, and all those activities are free to the kids.
What are the hours of the market?
Every Saturday, 7:30 in the morning until 11:30 in the morning, and we will run through October 19th. In 2024, we maintained our Salina waste service systems for the public trash pickup on the black canisters that are downtown. Our 32 hanging baskets, we had to replace 2 security cameras, but we are, the Salina Downtown Board of Directors, we're looking for other avenues to increase the security downtown, especially on the weekend. We also hope we'll have to replace a few of our small artificial Christmas trees that we put in the baskets. We've had several either vandalized or taken from them. And then, of course, we're still working on a digital messaging board for City Light Stage. In 2025, we will be going to the Main Street Now conference in Philadelphia. We hope to introduce a girls' weekend in downtown Salina. We also will be hosting this year for the first time, and then again next year, a family movie night. We're kind of tagging it as the drive-in movie without the drive at City Light Stage. And then, of course, introducing this year and into next, third Thursday, downtown trivia at Campbell Plaza. That will be from 7 to 9 every third Thursday starting this month. We're really excited about that. Just something else to do other than maybe going and listening to a music concert. And a lot of people have asked us about trivia and called our office and wanted to know where they could play some trivia. Some of the other comments that we get is that, and it still amazes me, I never come downtown. I had no idea downtown had all this variety. I had no idea that Salina Downtown was so walkable. We always bring our friends who visit us downtown. They're always amazed. And Salina Downtown is always the first stop when we come to visit. I'd like to also mention and comment that downtown Salina has become alive again. We still smile at our very best complaint that we get, and we still get the phone calls, there's no place to park. And we say, and isn't it great? You can come down on a Tuesday evening and there isn't a place to park. But you know what? There's plenty of parking in downtown Salina. As I mentioned, our farmers market has been hugely successful, selling out just about every Saturday. If you want a piece of pie from Robin Schultz Home Fresh Baking, you better get there at 7:30. Our social media has grown to 9,300 people. Our Constant Contact, which is our newsletter that we send out monthly, has an open rate of 50%. The average is only 14%. And we've had a growth in our social media at 178%. When we go to main streets, when we go to any main street, and we hope where everybody is coming to Salina, we take in fashion and culture, sociability, we shop, we eat, we have coffee. You might take your laptop and do a little bit of work. Main streets have a built-in joy of being in. which takes away the fear of missing out. If main streets disappear, if Salina downtown disappears, our center disappears. With your support and the City of Salina support, we're asking for the same amount of gift from last year, $80,000 in operational funding, $60,000 in facade funding. I would like to comment that we have used already half of the facade funding that was given to us last year for this year. With your support, we can continue to drive the positive changes, ensuring that downtown Salina remains a thriving center of culture, commerce, and community for generations to come. Together, we can advance the transformation of our beloved downtown and create a legacy of which we can all be proud of. Thank you for your time and your support. Do you have any questions for me?
Questions? Well, I continue to hear positive comments. Everything looks very nice down there. And
Thank you. We work hard and we're proud of what we're doing. When you see us smiling, you see us laughing, you see our enthusiasm, I assure you it's 150% real. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Up next is Visit Salina.
Ms. Tuxler.
Renee Dexler, President and CEO of the Salina Area Chamber of Commerce. I do want to note very quickly that all of us here, my staff is with me here today, are wearing green. No, we are not a weird cult, at least not in that way. Sylvia Rice, our Visit Salina director, her birthday was yesterday, so we are celebrating that today, and did just want to acknowledge at this time, thank you for your support during that trying time for us. This is the first time that I don't think she's been the one up here, so we did want to acknowledge that today. I'm going to clip through this really fast. I don't think any of you are not familiar with who we are or what we do, so I do want to get you the information. If there are questions, I'm happy to answer them, but definitely want to be able to give United Way their time as well, and so we're going to move through this pretty quickly. Just as a reminder, next slide. We get our funding through the transient guest tax. That's at 7.75% here for the city. We receive 3% of that portion for our operating costs, and then we also utilize or basically facilitate the Kenwood Oakdale Fund and the CARM Fund. I consider those pass-through dollars. We receive them, but we are the ones who distribute those. Those do not go into our operating budget. So when we talk about our operating budget, it's really that 3% portion. Our contract, as a reminder, our contract with the city is to market Salina as a destination for visitors, producing hotel overnights. We are essentially the marketing arm of visitation for the city of Salina. When we talk about heads and beds, that's what we are saying. We're trying to get people into Salina to spend overnight so that we can continue to generate that transient guest tax. Next slide. Functions of Visit Salina. As I mentioned, the marketing and media relations arm. We also do sports and special events services, convention services, provide tourism support, and research and analysis, and I'm going to go into this further. Next slide, please. Marketing and media relations. So we have a lot of different avenues that we utilize to market the city to our outsiders. We have print ads, things like Midwest Living, the Kansas Tourism Guide, USA Today Travel. We also have some specialty print ads that we do, like Invite Magazine, some association magazines that are specific for sports promotion or convention promotion as well. We do utilize billboards along I-135 and I-70 as well. We have great relationships with several of our television stations, KSN and KWCH particularly, to provide television ads and some also digital marketing within their fields. We are starting to do a lot more digital marketing, and this is just because we know that people, to kind of get in front of them, most of the time you're going to do it on their phones. So whether they're streaming, they're on social media, whatever that looks like, we are trying to get those ads placed so that they are seeing those where they're at, which is on their phones. And then there's the organic piece, local and regional news stories that are written up about Salina and what's going on here, sending out press releases to make sure that our press is aware of what's happening, our travel bloggers that come through and write about us and post on social media, as well as utilizing our own visitors' content in other ways. And so with all of that together, we try to, again, promote Salina outside of Salina. So a lot of times you all aren't seeing these advertisements because we really are trying to get that sort of donut outside of that 75-mile, 60, 75-mile area between Kansas and even regionally, especially Chicago, Denver, some of the places that we also know we have flights coming in to promote Salina as a place to visit or do business. Next slide, please. Just some photos that I wanted to show. Our visuals for Salina are looking really good these days, thanks to some of our campaign and photography partners. Next slide, please. So specifically to talk about sports and events, that's what Tiffany Benin in our office does as the Director of Sports and Special Events. She works with our local sports venues, our fields, our Parks and Recreation Department to promote our facilities and try to get those tournaments, those conventions, those clinics, any of the sports events that are happening into Salina. She has a great partnership with Keisha. As was already mentioned, we host a lot of Keisha state events here, including wrestling, basketball, baseball, softball just happened, football, was mentioned, tennis, as well as some other things. So between Tiffany hosting those site visits and then also coordinating those agreements, our partners at USD 305, Kansas Wesleyan, STA, as well as the City Parks and Rec Department as well, really working to, again, get people here who are spending the night and spending time in Salina and spending money. And so as you can see in 2023, we estimated with the events and the visitors about $19.94 million impact just with the sports events alone. So next slide, please. Also want to mention KKOA Car Show. That's another event that we host and help out with. And then also mention our volunteers. We calculated about 2,500 plus hours with volunteers in helping our sports events, some of our other events in the community function and facilitating those by providing them that volunteer coordination. So it's just another way we help in sort of hospitality. Next slide, please. Okay, so outside of sports and special events, we've also have ag, conventions, and military. That is what Joanne McClure does as our Director of Sales and Service, or Sales Services. She works responding to a lot of requests for proposals, folks that are wanting to hold a convention, wanting to hold a meeting, wanting to hold a show. Joanne is the person who actively works on those, tries to solicit those folks to come into Salina. Again, book those hotel rooms, book those venues. She works very closely with our hotels to get people slots so that they do come to Salina. And then once they're here, works really, really hard to give them the hospitality while they're here, the good service, the great experience, so that they continue to come back. And so there's a number of events that Joanne coordinates that continue to have contracts on them year over year now. So just wanted to note a couple of the things: $2.8 million in the ag market, $2.47 for meeting and conventions market. Our government military market was down a little bit in 2023. You see how high it was in 2022. We do expect to go that back up because we are going to get Jaded Thunder back, some other military exercises that will continue to draw that number back up again. Next slide. Just some notable events, and this is already just, I think, through April of this year. I know we have some more on the later side of 2024, but the Kansas Mission of Mercy was here. We held Equifest again. That's a huge event, over $1 million impact in itself. Kansas Rotary, the Kansas State Spelling Bee with the Kansas Press Association was held at Kansas Wesleyan. So we've already seen a number of these major statewide organizations choose Salina and continue to choose Salina as their place to hold their conferences or conventions. Next slide. Just a real great picture of Equifest there that I wanted to share. Next slide, please. So the other piece that we do is research and analysis. I'm not going to go through this stuff in detail just because you guys have these slides in front of you and can kind of look through it, but just kind of showing you what we know about our visitors in terms of their average length of stay, the days that they spend, the unique visitors. We can pull all that information from services that we use. Next slide, please. And this sort of helps us, with the marketing piece then. If we know what our visitor looks like, if we know who are the types of people that do enjoy coming into Salina and spending time, how do we market to them? And so this is just all information, sort of a demographic profile of the age, income, household, ethnicity, and the locale of our general sort of majority demographic that spends time in Salina. Again, you guys can read through that. If you have questions about it, let me know. Next slide. The other thing that we look at is the STAR report, which basically tells us what's going on in our hotels, what that average daily rate looks like, what occupancy is, what the RevPAR is, and then we can kind of see, where those trends are at, and it just helps us sort of understand what's going on in the hotels. Again, we have a citywide set that we pull, and then there's a premier subset that we also look at, that is some of our more premier hotels. That kind of helps us gauge what's going on a little better by pulling that subset out. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions about that, but that's just a bunch of information for you to look at. We utilize that, this information in terms of, again, how we market, how we work with our hotels, and definitely how we set our budget. So, next slide. And then I just also wanted to mention the other visitor support services. So aside from everything that we already do in those arenas, we have visitor packets that we provide. Sammy in our office is our service support specialist. She helps a lot with those visitor packets. We set up visitor booths when requested at the hotels and groups and events for people to have a place to come to find out what to do in Salina while they're here. We respond to visitor requests for information when they ask, either by email, phone. We provide investment and sponsorship in some of the major events here. We also do equipment share, so maybe not exact dollar sponsorship or investment, but we do loan out the Visit Salina trailer, tent signs, and coolers for organizations or events that need them. As I mentioned, we provide volunteers, and then referrals and information. We give out a lot of information about our local businesses. If somebody's needing something specifically, we definitely push them towards a local business. And then we also have the 67401 app, our visitor's guide, and our website that helps direct people as well. I also want to mention very quickly that some of the other services we provide sort of outside of this is also looking at when we have people in town, providing spouse or evening activities for them to do while they're here. There's certain specific support, especially from Joanne, for our military personnel when they're in town. And then we oftentimes go out and provide welcomes to these events, conventions, and we do thank you all for your help in that. A lot of times we do request of you to come out, the mayor especially, to do a welcome to our folks that are in town. And so really overall, it's just about providing the best hospitality we can. We love when we have visitors, because when visitors are here, they're spending money, and that helps us continue to generate what we need to continue to market Salina as a place to visit, and hopefully then eventually a place to live. We know that that's sort of the gateway drug into Salina, is for them to come visit, and we want them to maybe consider even staying. So that is all I had. I know I moved through that really quickly. I'm happy to answer questions that you may have, but.
Questions? I'll share a compliment I got last week.
Perfect.
Met a fellow at the gym who, from the Gulf Shore of Alabama, on his way to his hometown of Winter Park, Colorado, and he said, "Man, this is a really nice town."
Yes.
It's going to be his go-to stops.
Excellent, excellent. Well, that's sort of our, thing. We know we have a gem here in the middle of Kansas, and just continue to try to tell our story better and make sure people are aware that we're here and that we have a lot of things to offer. So.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, we are up on the clock.
I know. We're our last one, United Way and their child care initiative.
Ms. Ludes.
Okay, I'm going to go really fast. Claire Ludis, Executive Director, Salina United Way. We're not going to go through every slide, so I'm going to be quick. Okay, so we're going to go to the current data on childcare needs for homes and centers combined. These are the most current numbers. I know some of you have older PowerPoints, so this is the most current numbers for the number of children under the age of 6 here in Saline County, so 3,724. You see the licensed childcare centers, their capacity and their desired capacity, and then the number of family childcare homes, which you will notice is down. from 2022 now to 2024. We went from 120 now to 111, so it's reducing, but we are growing in centers. Right now, the current need for the number of childcare slots is 1,168 children that do not have a slot, and you'll see that we have current numbers from 2022, 2023, and 2024 for parents that are in the labor force, and then the number of children enrolled in childcare in Salina County. We're going to skip a few slides, and if you could get to the looking to the community with K-State Research and Extension slide. We just did a survey for the community here in Salina County. We had 213 responses. That was broken out into different categories: those adults seeking care, adults who have care, the general public, and then early childhood professionals. 95% of adults seeking care stated that the lack of availability and access to childcare is negatively impacting the community, and the general public agrees that families in the community don't have access to adequate supply of childcare services, which we already know because we have so many children that need a slot. On the next slide, these are some just general comments that were left on the survey that we thought would be important to share with you. I'm not going to read them to you, but I do encourage you to take a look at those. And it specifically does call out the city and county wanting to see some support from them. So just thought I'd throw that out there for you. If you go to the next slide, a couple ahead, one more. You'll see from your previous PowerPoints that you had that number was 460,000. That's now 530,000 is what the current funding needs are, because we have added and expanded child care centers. So that is now, like I've mentioned in the past, you're going to see that number is going to go up because we have to increase slots, which means increase workers. We have opened our first round of Early Child Care Initiative grants. We granted out to 7 nonprofits. We had 7 nonprofits apply. So every child care center that applied, that followed and asked for a dollar amount, was awarded. However, we did not have the total amount that was needed, and some of the funding that was asked for was for staff that was not yet hired and was for renovations that were not yet completed. So for example, Love and Learn asked for staffing that wasn't actually ready to be hired yet because their renovations weren't ready. They were just trying to be proactive. And so you'll see that that number is 581,000, but the 530 was the actual number of staff that needed to be given funding, and we were only able to fund approximately half of those requests because that's all that we had. Right now, we require the centers to give us monthly reporting. You'll see that with that, we're able to tell you the current open childcare slots, and you'll see there are 0 infant slots open. As soon as they come open, they're gone, and there is a wait list. So you'll see now the wait list for those 7 centers that used to only be 3 centers that had infant care is 66 infants. So as we know, infant care is a huge need. Toddler, we only have 4 slots, but again, if you remember what we've talked about, they can't transition kids or give away slots if they have somebody that's getting close. So those 4 slots is because they have an infant that's getting ready to move into that room and they can't open it and give it away, which is then why we have 81 that are on the wait list, because 4 of those are going to go away and then transition into other rooms. We're going to jump quite a few slides here because all of those are existing things that you have seen. And you're going to go almost all the way to the very second to last slide. With opening the Early Child Care Initiative Fund grant, we get actual budgets of child care centers, and this budget that is shown in your PowerPoint is an actual center here in Salina County. And you'll note that even if they increase their tuition, it's still not going to be enough to even get their staff, because they're already not able to pay what they're using their tuition for. So you'll see that their net income is negative $100,000. This is a child care. If you look at their accounts that they're spending money in and their expenses, there is nothing out of the ordinary here. There is nothing that would make you question how they're budgeting and things of that nature. it is very down to the bone basics, and they're still negative. So even if they were to increase their tuition, it's going to basically make them break even and still not be able to get to the living wage of $15, which is what we're working towards with teacher assistants, and $18 for lead teachers. And I know that I presented this request to you at the study session. It still remains the same. We're asking for $500,000 annually for the first 5 years, $300,000 of that being put to the endowment, and after 5 years reducing by $100,000 annually until $100,000 is reached and continued from there on out. Any questions? That might be a record. Just saying.
You ladies talk fast.
Well,
Hey, Claire,
Yes.
on the example you gave us on the operating budget, approximately how many childcare slots would that be at that facility? Just,
I believe they're licensed for 59.
and I know that varies because the amount
It
charged
does.
varies depending on infant versus so on and so
Correct.
forth. So I know it's not exact. I was just kind of.
Christina Small, Early Child Care Initiative Director. Yes, it's 56 or 59 is what they're licensed for. And they're the one that has the 4 open slots in the toddler rooms because they have 4 infants that are getting ready to transition over. So.
Just gives me an idea of what a budget is.
And the rates are current of what the child care centers are at. We did have one center that did raise their rates. That was Salina Child Care, due to the fact that Salina Regional did move their funding from them to us. And so that was a bit of a hit for them that they were not prepared for, and so they increased their wages to accommodate to that. I'm sorry, their tuition.
Their tuition.
Yes. So.
Questions? Has increasing the childcare worker wages been effective? Are we
Yes,
able to
every
staff?
center is fully staffed. McAdams,
Sorry, with the exception of one,
Which-
they just haven't opened that.
they're
one
the
yet.
brand new one, Magnolia Kids. They're slowly opening their rooms because they don't want to overwhelm their existing staff with a brand new director. But that is the only center. Everyone else has been able to now get their centers fully staffed and increase the wages. We specifically have one center that has told us that one of their staff came up to them after the increase and said that now they can stop worrying if they're going to have to pay their rent, how they're going to pay their rent. So again, it just goes back to numbers with 14% of Saline County actually with the current numbers being in poverty, 27% of people living paycheck to paycheck. Child care workers are in that group. And so how do we help keep them out of poverty? So.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We got through that, and we will take a little break here and be back at 5 o'clock for our regular meeting.
4 o'clock.
4. Yeah, yeah. Great to see you, Dennis. Good afternoon. I will call to the order the June 10th, 2024 meeting of the Salina City Commission. I will ask staff if confirmation of the Kansas Open Meetings Act required notice have been properly provided.
Yes.
Thank you. May we have roll call?
Mayor Longbine,
Here.
Commissioner Davis,
Here.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Here.
Commissioner Ivy,
Here.
Commissioner Lankowitz.
Here.
Thank you. May all who are willing and able please stand for Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have no public hearings. That will bring us to the consent agenda. Item 4.
Item 4.1, approve the minutes of the meeting of June 3rd, 2024. And item 4.2, approve resolution number 24-8214, authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement with USD 305 regarding school resource officers for the 2024-2025 school year.
Is there any public comment on the consent agenda items? Is there any item a commissioner would like to remove? I would entertain a motion.
Mayor Longbine, I move we approve consent agenda items 4.1 and 4.2.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items 4.1 and 4.2. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Administration, item 5.1.
Item 5.1, general obligation bond series 2024A. Consists of 2 action items. Item 5.1A is to approve ordinance number 24-11210, authorizing and providing for the issuance of general obligation bond series 2024A in the amount of $10,825. And item 5.1B is to approve resolution number 24-8217, prescribing the form and details and authorizing sale and delivery of said bonds.
Ms. Pack.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Debbie Pack, Director of Finance and Administration. This action item is a result of the City Commission approved item on May 13th, 2024, which allowed us to offer general obligation bonds for sale. As part of that process, the city undergoes a credit rating through Moody's. We did receive that rating from Moody's on May 31st, 2024, and it confirmed our current AA3 status. As you recall, these bonds are for the projects to pay for the permanent financing for fire apparatus and 3 special assessment districts: Lakeview Estates Number 2 Phase 2, Magnolia Hills Estates Number 2 Phase 2, and Wheatland Valley. Dave Arterberry from Stiefel Nicholas is here today to give you the report on the bids, and I also have a copy of that report for your benefit. So, Dave, I'll open it up to you. I have it somewhere here. Oh, there we go.
Good afternoon. David Arterberry again with Stiefel Nicholas. It's a pleasure to be here. And as Debbie mentioned, the city opened bids today for bonds that will finance the acquisition of firefighting apparatus as well as the 3 benefit districts that she mentioned. Before I go into the results of the sale, though, I just wanted to touch on a couple of items. With regards to getting your rating affirmed by Moody's, that is, you now have, and you have had for quite a while, a AA3 rating, which is a very good, strong credit rating. It's considered to be medium to high investment grade. Moody's, when they do their opinion, give some commentary on what they feel are the strengths and the weaknesses of your credit. And what they said for the credit strengths, they said Salina is a regional economic hub of north central Kansas and also that you have strong operating reserves and liquidity. I'd in particular point out that second comment as being very important because that is something that you directly have as a governing body and a staff control over, so that they're citing something that you guys have actively worked on to improve over the years. As far as credit challenges, they say that, and this is a song they've been singing for quite a while, the economic metrics fall below similarly rated peers, which basically means that your income levels and your valuation per pupil, your tax base per capita, isn't quite the same as other AA credits around the country. And given that those other credits are probably on the East and West Coast and have higher home prices, I think that's an understandable comment that they have there. But the credit rating went very well. The bidding documents were all distributed last week. I wanted to show you, before I got into the results, the sort of the interest rate environment. That's that graph that Debbie handed out there. This graph just shows a 1 and a 10 and a 20-year interest rate for highly rated tax-exempt bonds. And I kind of highlighted on the right-hand side, and this is since the beginning of 2022, when rates really started to rise. You'll notice the dotted line on the right-hand side of the graph is where the interest rates were when I was here back in May to get authorization to sell the bond. So you can see rates kind of went up quite a bit after that, or spiked up. They did come down a little bit last week. The market seems to have a good tone starting last week, and rates dropped. And I think that tone really kind of carried on into the market today, as evidenced by the fact that you ended up getting a total of 10 bids on your bonds, which is a very, very nice result. Over the last 5 years, you've gotten anywhere from 2 bids to 10 bids. So this is as many as you've gotten on the sale of your bonds in recent years. The best bid, the firm that was offering to purchase the bonds at the lowest interest rate, was submitted by UBS Financial Services out of New York. The rest of the firms you can see there all bid in a fairly tight range. It's really the difference between the high bid and the low bid was less than 0.2 of a percentage point. But the UBS bid was the best bid. We reviewed it and made sure it met all the bidding parameters, and it did. We also had them supply a required good faith deposit, and that arrived at the city's bank. So there's no reason we would see that you wouldn't want to accept the bid by UBS. So welcome any questions that you might have about the rating or the market or the process or the results.
Questions for Mr. Atterbury?
I don't have any questions about this, but after we're done with this, I do have a couple questions I'd like to ask about bond rating questions before you sit down.
So these bonds did sell today at noon?
Right. Yep. And the only actions required tonight are to adopt the bond ordinance that authorizes the issuance of the bonds and the bond resolution that prescribes all the form and details behind the bonds. That's the only actions required for the commission tonight.
Okay. So this graph, May 13th, that 10-year was a lot more favorable, and not a lot different, but 0.5%.
Is that, maybe 0.25%? Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Wish we could buy a new car at that rate.
Or a house.
A house, yeah. There you go. So, any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
So as Mr. Arterbury indicated, we do need to adopt the ordinance 2411210, which authorizes the issuance and delivery of the bonds. You can vote to amend those, postpone it, or deny. Same with resolution 248217, which prescribes the detail and the form of the bonds that we'll be issuing.
Okay. Is there any public comment? it back for action.
Mr. Mayor, move that we approve ordinance number 24-11210, authorizing the issuance and delivery of not to exceed $10,825,000 principal amount of general obligation internal improvement bond series 2024A.
Second?
Excuse me. Mitch Walter, Gilmore and Bell, bond counsel to the city. During the course of the sale, because the premium wasn't bid quite as high as anticipated, which Dave can address if necessary, it was necessary to raise the principal amount of the bonds from the $10,825,000 to the $10,970,000. And if there are any questions about how that process worked, I think Dave would be happy to answer them. But I just wanted to make that clarification because the motion did reference the 10,825 number.
Need to note that in the motion.
So I went to 10 million. Am I on? That went to 10 million what?
970,000.
And Dave, if you could, you might explain how the bidding works and why that occurs.
First of all, when we were here back in May, the estimated size, just as an original point of reference, was $11,835,000. Since that time, a couple of things have happened. First of all, there was a fairly large assessment prepayment. Somebody prepaid about $270,000 worth of the assessments that brought the borrowing amount down from, $11,800,000 down about $270,000. The other thing that happens, though, is when bids are submitted, the bidders on the bonds are supplying interest rates for every single maturity of the bonds. And they're free to assign whatever interest rate that they want within certain parameters. The big parameter here is they can't assign an interest rate of above 5.5%. The way almost all of the bidders, in fact, in this case, all of the bidders, they construct their bid is they assign 5% and 4% interest rates to almost all the bonds. Those are above what the prevailing market is. So what they agree to do is pay the city a premium. So instead of paying you, let's say for $10 million of bonds, instead of paying you $10 million, they might pay you $10,500,000. Well, we don't need that extra $500,000 premium, so what we do is we reduce the bond issue size. So when we were preparing for the sale, I had to try to estimate how much that premium was going to be, and I had estimated it was going to be about $700,000 or $800,000. It ended up being about $600,000. So the net result is that the city gets as much money as we were expecting. You're not getting more money than you were originally anticipating getting. You're just getting it in the form of some premium along with the prepaid assessments and then the new bond issue size. So it's kind of a moving target, and we really don't know what the size is going to be until we get the bids.
So those down payment funds on the fire trucks will come back into the city's reserves, correct? From the bond sale.
The premiums that you're receiving will be used with the principal amount of the bonds to give you the money that you need to buy the firefighting apparatus and to pay for the benefit district projects. There won't be any surplus left over after. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
So how does that work when we have the large amount that's a 10-year and the remainder are 20-year bonds? Are there two separate amortization schedules then? Okay. So
yeah, if you look at what we don't provide that to you, but if you look at the amortization schedule, the principal payments, you'll notice that for the first 10 years, they're very large. And then for the last 10 years, they're much smaller. And the reason is because the majority of this money was for the firefighting apparatus, and it's being repaid over 10 years. The smaller portion of the bond issue, which is about $2.5 million, that's repaid over 20. So we amortize those projects separately, but then we join them into a single bond issue to sell the bonds. Then when it comes time to repay the bonds, we split it apart again so that the benefit districts are responsible for paying the 20-year piece. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Commissioner Davis, would you like to retract your motion and edit it to this new amount?
Well, it'd be easier just to amend the amount, I hope. Would that be sufficient? Amend the amount of the issuance to $10,970,000.
Okay.
Second.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 24-11210, authoring the issuance and delivery of not to exceed $10,970,000 principal amount of general obligation internal improvement bond series 2024-A. May we have a roll call?
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick?
Aye.
Commissioner Ivy?
Aye.
Commissioner Lankwitz?
Aye.
Mayor Longvine?
Aye.
So, sorry to be a stickler, but I think we'll call that approving the amendment, and now you need to approve as amended, just to be on record correctly.
We want to approve the ordinance.
The motion as amended, now that you've amended the number to the $10,970,000.
Okay. May I hear a motion to approve the amended ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to approve the amended ordinance number 24-11210. We need another roll call?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick?
Aye.
Commissioner Ivy?
Aye.
Commissioner Lankwitz?
Aye.
Mayor Longvine?
Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Question for future, would that be better just to leave that dollar amount blank and fill that in when we know the dollar amount? Because that premium's always going to be an estimate. I'm looking at.
Yeah, if we had it to do over again, we probably should have distributed to you a corrected version today. But rather than leave it open-ended and have it seem like a blank check, I think we're motivated to make our best estimate.
That's what I would
front
suggest
end
we do from now on is have that. So we don't. Okay.
I guess we need to bring the white out. Okay, that brings us to the second resolution on the sale of the bonds.
Mayor, move approval of resolution number 24-8217, prescribing the form and details of and authorizing the delivery of $10,970,000 principal amount of general obligation internal improvement bonds, series 2024A.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and a second to approve resolution number 24-8217, prescribing the form and details of and authorizing the delivery of $10,970,000 principal amount of general obligation internal improvement bonds, series 2024-A. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen.
I did have a couple of questions, maybe for Mr. Atterbury, since he's here, to pick his brain. And I'll look at city staff also, because we're in the process of doing our budgeting, and as you are aware, we get credit because we've increased our general reserve balance significantly. And again, we're looking at how to handle some of those general reserve balances, whether we, use that to require less bonding in the future or set funds aside like for the river. Is there a magic or a dollar amount there that I guess I would like you and staff to talk about, that we don't get below that number, that then we get criticized for having?
Yeah, there's, they have measurements of, this is a typical range for reserves for this rating category, and this is a typical range of reserves for this category. So we could look at that and tell you what is typical for a AA rated city, but you have to keep in mind, though, that there's other credit factors that come into play. So, like, for instance, the economic metrics, you might not rate at a AA level on those, but with your reserves, you might rate above AA, so it blends to a AA. So I wouldn't want to tell you, okay, it's okay to have your reserves at this level, but then if that's lower than where you're at now, could that overall cause your rating to go down if you would otherwise be at that?
I know it's not exact science, but I
So, Dave, feel free to correct me if you disagree, but each time we participate in a ratings call or we have someone from the rating agency on the phone and they hit us with a list of detailed questions ahead of time for Debbie as finance director, myself as city manager, and Dave as financial advisor to try to respond to. And that's some detailed questions. It's also a conversation. And we've gone into that the last few years really trying to drive home the point of our reserve balances and our financial health. And they've been very responsive to that. But at the end of the call, it's, well, we'll take this to committee, we'll take it under advisement, you get your rating back, we can have a little bit of a conversation with them, but it's very much, as Dave described, it's not as formulaic as it is, you have that whole conversation, and then they take it to committee. Coming out of COVID, where we felt like we were really healthy, the rater was pretty frank in saying, ARPA dollars and inflation caused everyone to kind of see a bump, and so while you're healthy, the whole curve was trending better.
But we've continued to trend up too, and I guess that's my next question. You made a comment that I use the word income, it's probably incorrect, but is lower than some of our peers. And is that looking at sales tax and property tax both?
The statistics that they were citing for the economics were three things. It was income per capita, so I think it's just household income, or what income.
So it's not income for this, okay.
No, it's not income for the city. They looked at full valuation per capita, so the appraised value for all of the property within the city divided by the population. And then the other thing they looked at was I believe it is the growth in your valuation each year over the last 5 years compared to the national median growth in valuation. And your valuation the last couple of years has gone really nice. Okay. It was those 3 years preceding that where I think the growth was slowed down compared to maybe elsewhere in the country.
Okay. That's very helpful. I was wanting to know what matrices they were using on that, so thank you.
Sure.
I think that is a good point to consider if things get really tight, what we want our minimum reserve without affecting the bond rating.
Yeah, we're definitely mindful of that, kind of on the low end, but it's hard to get them to give you just a 1-for-1 ratio.
Okay. Any other questions on that? That will take us to developmental business, item 6.1.
Item 6.1, approve resolution number 24-8216, setting a public hearing date for a dangerous structure at 254 North Penn Avenue.
Mr. Furbeck.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Mayor. I'm Sean Furbeck. I'm the dangerous structure specialist for the city. And before us today is 254 North Penn. I wanted to give you just a little background here. On February the 20th of 2024, there was a structural fire at that residence. On 4/25 of 24, myself and a building official conducted an inspection of said property. We sent a letter detailing that May 25th, 2024 was the deadline to start repairs or get permits to repair or demolish the property. It has not been completed to any degree. So, under Resolution 8216, the structure at 254 North Penn has been assessed and found to have conditions that meet the definition of a dangerous structure per Kansas statute and Salina Municipal Code, Section 31-500. As such, we were requesting that a public hearing date be set to discuss the conditions that make this structure a candidate for immediate repair or condemnation and demolition. For procedural fairness and due process reasons, we are not presenting information concerning the structure at this time, but will present everything publicly at the requested public hearing. So where we are at today is to approve Resolution 8216. We can postpone consideration to a further date, postpone the resolution, or deny the resolution. Questions?
Questions for Mr. Furbeck? Okay, thank you. Any public comment? And bring it back for action.
Okay, Mayor Longbine, I move we approve resolution number 24-8216, setting August 12th, 2024 as the public hearing date for the dangerous structure located at 254 North Penn Avenue.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 24-8216, setting August 12th, 2024 as the public hearing date for the dangerous structure located at 254 North Penn Avenue. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Here's to item 6.2.
Item 6.2, approve ordinance number 24-11209, amending the City of Salina Municipal Code to provide certain exceptions for self-storage facilities in the 2012 International Building and Fire Codes.
Mr. Holman.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Sean Holman, City Building Official, and I serve in the Community Development Services Department. I have some background information for the proposed ordinance to amend the Salina Code to create an exception for self-service storage facilities. Please note that Chapter 9 in the IBC, the International Building Code, and Chapter 9 in the IFC, the International Fire Code, are the same, and they provide requirements for automatic fire suppression systems, sprinklers. So whenever Section 903.2.9 is referenced in either the IBC or the IFC, the text is the same for both codes. Recently, Mark Augustine submitted a request for a code amendment related to a self-service storage facility project that's underway at 3730 South 9th Street. And the model building and fire codes applying to self-service storage facilities have been amended locally. And the local amendment created a 7,500 square feet area threshold before an automatic sprinkler system would be required. Current city staff believe that this amendment was thought to govern self-service storage occupancies and to have been stricter than the text in the model IBC and IFC codes. When Mr. Augustine submitted his plans for the storage facility at 3730 South 9th, it was found that IFC Interpretation 20-14 clarified that IBC and IFC Section 903.2.9, Condition 5, applied to self-service storage occupancies. So this interpretation made clear that the model code was in fact stricter than our local amendment. And this meant that the model codes required sprinkling Mr. Augustine's proposed 13,500 square feet climate-controlled storage building. The alternative to sprinkling is to separate the building into sections of no more than 2,500 square feet each with 3-hour fire resistance rated walls. Now, this matter was brought to the Building Advisory Board in a special meeting held May 22nd, 2024. And after hearing from Mr. Augustine and city staff, the result of the meeting was a recommendation to amend the Salina Code as noted in the Ordinance 24-11209 there in your packet. To amend the code would effectively create an exception to IBC and IFC Section 903.2.9, Condition 5, for self-service storage occupancies, and would allow the existing local amendment to continue to govern. The local amendment, again, allows for a 7,500 square feet threshold before automatic sprinklers would be required. Now, for this item, we've identified 4 possible actions. Number 1, approve ordinance number 24-11209. 2, approve ordinance 24-11209 with amendments as the commission deems appropriate. 3, postpone consideration of the ordinance to a specified date and time and provide us direction regarding additional information or amendments the City Commission would like to request for consideration. And 4, vote to deny ordinance 24-11209, resulting in no change to the Salina Code. And staff recommends option 1. And I also want to note that Mr. Augustine is here in person with us this afternoon in case the commission has any questions for him. I'm available, of course, to answer any questions, and I believe Fire Marshal Joe Kovacic was going to be on Zoom to be available for questions as well. So I'll stand by.
Questions for Mr. Holman?
Just kind of on principle, I mean, I'm obviously not going to sit here and try to outguess some experts who come up with some international building codes. But if the world experts have said this is the way it's supposed to be, why are we going against that collective wisdom?
Yeah, very fair question. This particular IFC interpretation caused quite a discussion among all plan reviewers and code experts nationwide. In fact, it was noted as being, and I have to admit this is in a discussion forum on the internet, but it is one where code officials share ideas and experiences. But this interpretation 20-14 has been dubbed the self-service storage unit killer because there was so much of a backlash. The research that I did showed that about 50% of the time municipalities went with the change, went with the interpretation, and agreed to apply the code as written by the ICC and interpret it that way. And about half of the folks who did the research came away with an amendment, as we're proposing today, in order to raise those thresholds. And I'll note that for a general S1 storage type occupancy, the threshold before sprinklers are required is actually 12,000 square feet. And so the 7,500 threshold, it was brought lower than for other occupancies of the same type. There are different thresholds prescribed specifically for particular occupancies, as there is for this one. In discussion, myself, also the fire marshal, in our research, we frankly are comfortable with a 2,500 up to a 7,500 square feet threshold for a number of reasons. One of those is that in self-service storage facilities, these inevitably are laid out with really good exiting. They have few corridors because to have lots and lots of corridors would be a waste of space that could be used to store household goods. And so often the corridors are wide, exiting is very easy. There's a very low incidence of human occupants inside. It is mostly stuff and not very many people. And from a first responder perspective, exiting is great, and there are not expected to be very many occupants in the building at any given time. And so all of these were factors that were considered. The exiting, the relatively low number of people who would be going in and out and utilizing the facility at any given time. And so I hope that speaks to your question, Mr. Davis.
And just one other follow-up on page 3 here. It's different situations in which the square footage varied for the use of sprinklers, but example number 5, if upholstered furniture or mattresses were stored, it looks like depending on what's being stored determines what variation to that square footage. Is there any limit, or do you have to know what's being stored in the building in order to make a final decision on whether or not it needs to be sprinkled?
Right. Well, what you've identified was actually one proposed option for complying with the code, perhaps disallowing the storage of upholstered furniture and mattresses, because these are the items at issue in Condition 5. Wherever there is the potential for upholstered furniture or mattresses to be stored because of their combustibility, the flame or smoke potential if they were to catch fire, they are addressed specifically. Now, in the past, it appears as though condition number 5 was thought to apply particularly to backstock areas or to warehouses predominantly for the storage of upholstered furniture and mattresses, and not to apply to self-service storage units where the incidence of these items is relatively lower. And then when IFC Interpretation 2014 was published, it addressed that very question. And that's where the ICC said, we understand that some jurisdictions are applying this to mean 2,500 square feet in a warehouse or in a backstock area, then you would have to sprinkle. But what we're saying is, even if it's a self-service storage facility where you have 2,500 square feet of storage area, you have to sprinkle the whole building if even one mattress or one piece of upholstered furniture might appear. And again, due to lots of mitigating factors having to do with construction, and Mr. Augustine may wish to speak to his particular proposed building because it's going to be of non-combustible construction, and as I said, exiting is very good, and there were enough mitigating factors that, again, when we researched and we discussed, both the fire marshal and I were okay. We were comfortable with a range of 2,500 to 7,500 square feet before requiring separation with 3-hour firewalls or sprinkling throughout the building. And please note that the requirement in the building and fire codes is that the entire building must be sprinkled, not just the fire area where one mattress or one piece of upholstered furniture may be present, but the entire building in which that particular occupancy may live.
So the way the ordinance is written, I'm not sure in section 2 if example 5 is partially accepted or whether 5 is, there's something written in italics, exception to 5. I'm just not sure what the finished product is.
So the ordinance, if adopted, would create an exception to condition 5. That all of that text in italics, that would be the change. And it reads, exception to 5, group S1 occupancies that are self-service storage units shall meet the requirements of the Salina Municipal Code section, and in the case of the fire code, it's section 14-3-1-903.2.9.3, and in the case of the building code, it is section 8-1-1-903.2.9.3. In effect, it creates an exception to allow the local amendment that has governed self-service storage occupancies to continue to do so. That's the proposal in the ordinance before you
So if
today.
mattresses and upholstered furniture are in there, it doesn't have to be sprinkled? Is that the net result of that exception?
Up to a 7,500 square feet area, yes, sir. Or, again, separation by 3-hour firewalls, which by section 706 in the International Building Code would in effect create separate buildings between those, would make either side of that 3-hour separating firewall to be treated as 2 separate buildings. And so you could separate, have a compartment of up to 7,500 square feet, separate another, et cetera.
Well, I do feel better now that I know why this wasn't making sense at 11 o'clock last night. Okay.
There's a lot to it.
All right.
And
any other questions?
Mr. Holman, I take it that, and again, we don't have copies of it, but you've reviewed the plans, the width of the hallways, so on and so forth, that allowed you and the fire department to be comfortable with this.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In fact, we have PDFs of a general floor plan. I don't believe there are dimensions on it, but we have some pictures that we could.
You don't have to show them to me because they don't mean anything. I'm just,
Okay.
I want to make sure that the people in the know have, and I'm okay with this. To me, sprinklers is usually, you're dealing with a life safety issue, and to me, this is a storage unit, and your comments that were made earlier make perfectly good sense to me. So.
Yes, sir. That's exactly the view that the fire marshal and I have taken, is we're primarily concerned with life safety for building occupants and for first responders. And so we're comfortable with the amendment as we had it prior to this interpretation.
So has this issue came up with previous storage facilities here at Salina?
Not that we know of. And so I think there are possibly two explanations for that. One is because this change, the addition of condition 5, came about in the 2012 code cycle, and so it was new, and we may not have had very many self-service storage units built under the current code. Also, I think it quite possible that, as was mentioned in the background in the blue sheet, that condition 5, where there would be the storage of upholstered furniture and mattresses, was probably thought to apply to backstock areas and warehouses and not to a possible occurrence or incidence of these items in household storage units. And so I suspect that's also why the ICC had to write an interpretation 2 years after the model code came out, was to clarify that, yes, they did intend to include any possible occurrence. And as I said, it set off a lot of discussion, and about 50% of the field went with the model code and about 50% of the field amended, as we're looking at doing today.
And did the fire department indicate any history of fires at storage units? Did Chief Kovacic get on?
Do we know, Mr. Kovacic not on? I can tell you that informally I asked, and the answer was no. They're not aware of any fires in self-service storage units here that could be thought of off the top of the head. That was not a deep dive into records, but that's the only information I have at this time.
Okay, thank you.
I think it
One
mentions it in here.
clarification.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
When you go up to the 2018 IFC or IBC, is this just automatically roll, or do you have to rewrite that into it?
That's a great question. You can bet this is a topic that we're going to be discussing again, because we have already reviewed the 2018 IBC and have a recommendation from the Building Advisory Board to go with the model code. And we are just about to begin our review of the 2018 IFC. And so we'll have another opportunity. As I said, Chapter 9 in both books is actually exactly the same. And so we'll have an opportunity to revisit this, to talk about any action that might be taken tonight, to talk about the IFC interpretation, and to discuss thresholds again before we come back to you with the proposal for the 2018 code cycle. And that should be early fall at this point.
If I could offer one clarification, this is an amendment to the code requirement to be applied universally. So Mr. Augustine's situation and what it did to his project kind of prompted the conversation, but I want to be clear that his construction type or anything specific to his project isn't necessarily, this is not a variance for his project. This is a code amendment that would be applied across the board.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Augustine, do you have any comments to add?
Mark Augustine, 148 Mount Barbara, Salina. I don't want to take up your time repeating what Mr. Homan had to say, but I guess just to explain why I'm here today is that I thought I did my homework as I laid out my storage project. I knew that from previous projects that Salina had a stricter code for fire suppression that went to 7,500 square feet, not 12,000. I called city staff to confirm that, and that was confirmed. And so I proceeded to lay out my storage complex to include this climate-controlled storage facility. And it's 13,500 square feet, because that kind of maximizes the layout of the facility without any wasted space, which allows about 6,750 square feet on each side of that building, because we're going to build a fire barrier wall in there to reduce that square footage to under 7,500 square feet. So I passed that on to my architect, and we proceeded with the design, and not until the building permit process did we all find this special section in Code 2012 that called out what Sean described here earlier. So that's why I'm here today, because it came to a surprise, I think, to everyone, and that's not a reason to approve it, but that's why I'm here. But to substantiate what Mr. Homan said about occupancy, I researched my log into the climate-controlled facility I have today. The most that ever entered that building during any day is 9 people, and none of them were there at the same time. Usually it's 2 or 3, so it's not really a life safety issue as far as keeping people safe. We did look at, and we can still divide it up to 2,500 square feet, but my opinion is that makes it less safe for the public and someone to fight a fire, because now they have to enter into all these smaller cavities inside the building, not knowing where the fire is. So that is still an option. But I believe because this building is all non-combustible materials, none of the units have electricity in. The only electricity in the building is for lights and heating and air conditioning. So I'd stand for any questions you might have, but that's what we have going up out there.
Yeah, I see it's making pretty good progress.
Yes, we are. So,
any questions from Mr. Augustine?
thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment on this item? Bring it back for action.
I move we approve ordinance number 2411209, amending the City of Salina Municipal Code to provide certain exceptions for self-storage facilities in the 2012 International Building and Fire Codes.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve ordinance number 24-11209, amending the City of Salina Municipal Code to provide certain exceptions for self-storage facilities in the 2012 International Building and Fire Codes. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Ivy?
Aye.
Commissioner Lankwitz?
Aye.
Mayor Longbine?
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Brings us to other business. Is there an item the Commissioner would like to bring up?
Mayor, we do have one item that probably fits under other business related to Greyhound. I know there's been quite a bit of conversation in the community, and staff's been involved in some of that conversation about their pickup point.
Yeah,
So
I
I'll
got
ask Sean
email the
Hennessy,
other day,
Assistant
and
City
I
Manager.
shared it with a couple people, so.
Yeah, Sean Hennessy, Assistant City Manager, can speak to
Mr.
that, I
Hennessy,
think.
go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I just want to let the city commissioners know. Oh,
Is your mic on?
huh?
Is your mic on?
It is now.
Okay.
Yeah. I just want to let the city commissioners know there was a delay in the agreement between the hotel and Greyhound for the bus service to commence. That has finally been reached. So if you remember, the bus stop was originally at Thomas Park. And then the proposal was to move the bus stop down south to the Super 8 Hotel. It was delayed as they worked through those contract negotiations, and I believe it was June 6th was the first day that they started using that. So that has finally gone into place after they were able to complete the contract negotiations. So.
Thank you. And that was an effort by the North Salina Community Development Group that pursued that in respects to safety and welfare of people, being out there in the middle of the night in all weather. So that was a successful effort. It took a long time, but things worthwhile do. So thank you for that update. That will bring us to citizens forum, and if you have comment on an item not on the agenda, please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. And please state your name.
My name is Lori Troe, 740 South 9th Street here in Salina, and I am here representing the Salina League of Women Voters, and you should have all gotten an email from me last week, but the Salina League of Women Voters, Salina Moms demand action for Gun Sense, NAACP, Saline County Democratic Women, Smoky Hill Equality Coalition, and others request that you reconsider your decision to remove the proclamation process from the City Commission agenda and move it to another time. This is a move away from democracy when the people who elected you are not allowed to appear before you on a simple proclamation. We believe you should take another look at your decision. In this time of great division in our country, it is essential that our community make every attempt to remain united. The City Commission has worked to engage with all groups in Salina and to promote our great community spirit. Recent decisions of this commission have been to meet less frequently, to move public comment to the end of the meeting, and now to remove public proclamations altogether. This is a worrying trend. Please consider reversing your decision to remove the proclamations. Thank you.
Rosemary Mize, Salina, Kansas. I just wanted to let the public know that the Granny Brigade is hosting a primary candidate forum next week, Tuesday, June the 18th at 7 p.m. at the Carver Center, 315 North 2nd Street, and it is open to the public no matter what your party affiliation is. Thank you.
Hi. Good evening, Commissioners. I see there's a few changes here, but I will say I am Kay Crawford for the City Clerk's records. I spent 32 years in this building, 25 of those trying very hard to resolve issues between people. My efforts were always to bring people together. I spent another several years sitting where you are as commissioner and 2 years as mayor, with a couple of you there still there. But I didn't come here to talk about that, but to talk about the importance of democracy to all of us. We have recently had remembrances of the veterans who helped us keep that democracy in Normandy. We lost thousands in Normandy, on the beaches of Normandy, and only a very few remained from World War II. My own husband was a career military man and spent a year in Vietnam during the Tet Offensive. We've been so fortunate in Salina. I only say this because I want to say that we've been so fortunate, because even with all the divisions all over the country, we have remained mostly united in Salina. So I'm here to ask you, as Lori did, to rethink your recent decision on taking the proclamation process out of the commission room. This is the people's room. People should always, always be invited to this room. We have had many times when we thought, well, maybe we should go to evening meetings just so that people will come to this meeting. The process you have approved is creating and will, I think, continue to create divisions among us, not uniting us. You may feel that the simple proclamation meeting or proclamation process is not very important because, you know, as a commissioner, I know you work with important people, developers, architects, attorneys, city attorney. Anyway, you work with lots of important people, but the people who stand before you and see you on the streets are even more important because they are a part of this community and a heart of the community. I believe unity and harmony begin at the grassroots level. That's what we are. We don't know what's going on in Washington. We know what we hear from all sides. We don't know what's going on completely at the state level, but we know what goes on at the grassroots level, and it's very important. I feel that, you know, if you feel like there's something you can't handle, pass it to another commissioner. There were things came before me that I thought, well, I don't know, this seems kind of unimportant and unnecessary. That doesn't matter. They're the people of this community. And I don't like this whole thing, and I don't agree with it. And there were things that I didn't agree with when I was on the commission, and you will see a lot of things. I try to always remember that I was not there for me. I'm not that important. I was there for the community and the people that are here bringing their proclamation and their events, which the way our media is now, or our lack of information, we don't know the events in the community. We don't hear about those. So that proclamation process helps in that way. So I respectfully submit to you that to review my request to reconsider your decision on the proclamation process and bring it back to the people's room. And I would like to see it again at the front, at the top of the agenda, because people are working.
10 seconds, Ms. Crawford.
They don't know what time. I'm sorry, what?
10 seconds.
Okay, they don't know what time that you're done or when the proclamation process would be. So I forgive you if you don't do this, but I sincerely hope that you will. And I'm sorry if I have gone over time. There will be people that do that too. Thank you, Commissioners.
Don't look at that screen. All right, Richard Albert Humphrey II, Salina, Kansas, known to say something borderline crazy and then something compassionate about the elders. Hopefully we realize I'm compassionate about the elders and crazy about them. Before I recommend a proclamation regarding CNA Week 2025, and do my best not to plug a CNA collective that will fiscally bridge business agencies and whatnot to CNAs that are sharpening their skills and their futures. I need to be transparent with you, Mr. Mayor. As we know, hate speech is not free speech. And also, I don't believe recusing yourself from the LGBT community needs removal. But the people questioned removal, so I pursued and asked the clerk, and she delivered information as always. I encourage anyone wanting to sign that petition, INGAGE.67401 or better yet, come fill these seats at the next meeting. Anywho, CNA Week is that's a 24/7 no days off job, and the CNA Week, okay, where did I just go there? CNA Week is June 13th through the 19th, and the 2024 theme is We'll Be There For You. So for those that think CNA is just white backsides and, take to dying like rotisserie chickens, a CNA is more often than not a loved one's first and last honest relationship before their last breath. So please support your local CNAs, and if you want to continue that conversation, personal email rich.humphrey2@gmail.com. I move so fast with a minute left. There's a lot to say here. Thanks to the Central Kansas Death Care Collective, Salina Tech, CNA Collective, Facebook friends, and those that have faith in our community moving forward. Next time I will be up here, I will be discussing my fear of someone filling the mayor's seat that's not economically sound. Pretty excited about that. I'm getting a lot less nervous, but thanks for all you do, and also have a good rest of your week, and thank you again.
Deborah Corrales. I just want to comment on a few things. I've given you guys lists of the 51 cities that I've confirmed repealed their breed-specific legislation. There's not just 22. I'm waiting on confirmation from 5 others. I also want to comment on the presentation that was given by Mr. Hennessy. I'd like to correct some of his mistakes. Auburn did not repeal in 1998. It repealed in 2019. Greensburg did not repeal in 2007. 2021 is when it was repealed. LaSinge repealed not in 2007, but in 2017. And back down here in the corner, he said that these 3 weren't contacted, I believe, because they had just started or had just repealed. Isn't that what you said? this is the presentation that you gave? Okay, well, that's what you said about these three, and one repealed in 2015, one repealed in 2021. The only one that recently repealed was 2024. I've also given you a Kansas City blog. He's been doing this since 2006. It gives a list of a bunch of different repeals throughout the United States, mostly Kansas and Missouri, and explains why they did it. Springfield did repeal by popular vote of 68% in 2018, but I believe it was Liberty did it in 2019. Missouri in 52% voted that way. We've become a throwaway society. I saw Mike's interview about all the pit bulls that are in the rescues and the shelters, but that's not all that's there. There's a lot of animals from post-COVID that people just threw away when they didn't need them anymore. So it's not just pit bulls, people, it's all animals. Cats are a horrible problem at this time of year. And now we've thrown away our volunteers. Salina, animals are important to people. This needs to be repealed. You have 25 dogs down there that are called pit bulls, and one's been there for over a year, since April of 2023. Got to be going stir crazy. This law needs to be changed. It's stupid, ridiculous, and backed by no facts whatsoever. Thank you.
Hi, I am Janet Hanson, and I reside at 1558 Austin Circle here in Salina, Kansas. I have a very clear memory of attending a class on peace studies and nonviolent communication, and the instructor said that when we go into a conflict, we should always remember that everyone has a piece of the truth and the untruth. We also discussed that you will never hear your opponent viewpoints which contain truth if you do not engage in deep listening. There is a kind of conceit when we as individuals can believe that we are the sole holders of truth, and this is the ego placing the self on a pedestal, and it is never helpful. It does not promote deep listening of others in the community. It robs you, the decision makers, of hearing important viewpoints. It can only create solutions that generally satisfy those that crafted them in isolation from the larger community. I see the City Commission as becoming ever more isolated and making it ever more plain that they do not value the thoughts of ordinary citizens. They view themselves as the best authority on how this community should run. The City Commission runs meetings during the workday. They tried many times to curtail public commentary for length and content, but ultimately, they decided to move the comment session to the end of the agenda, which has resulted in effectively marginalizing the people. A founding ideal of this country was of democracy, a governing structure that would hear and be informed by the people. But a city commission that so effectively plugs its ears to public comment eschews that lofty ideal. I believe that Americans of all political stripes realize that America is at a deeply undemocratic moment at the federal level, at the state level, and yes, right here in Salina, Kansas. Do better, Salina City Commission. The very least thing that you can do is to bring back the ideal of the proclamation, a key touch point of citizen engagement where citizens proclaim what they are doing to make our Salina community better. And the proclamation implied that the mayor and the city commission recognized and accepted that engagement. But it's really hard to say that you care for the opinions of citizens when you do everything you can to plug your ears against them. Do better, city commissioners.
Good evening. Raiden Gonzalez, Salina, Kansas. Tonight, I'm deeply troubled by the conduct of our city's mayor and his supporters known as the Granny Brigade. During this year's month of Pride, it is disheartening to see a mayor who appears out of place in his role, as he seems to prioritize his political interest over the well-being of our community. His close association with the Granny Brigade is called into question with the sincerity of his actions and the integrity of your leadership, Mr. Mayor. This Pride Month, the mayor's inactions enabled discrimination, harassment, and bullying against myself and fellow members of the LGBTQ community. Anonymous threats and protesters, harassment, even during Pride events, illustrates my issue. And legislative actions, such as the one that you guys placed right after the Pride Proclamation reading, barred acceptance of individuals as they are. What we observed was not just a personal bias, it was outright bigotry in my eyes. And this situation sheds light on the critical question that the Granny Brigade and Mayor Longbein have been pondering. Why aren't young people staying in Salina, Kansas? Well, I have that answer. It's backward policy choices like the ones you guys implemented. All of these factors are departure of young residents like myself. So to the LGBT youth of Salina, Kansas, I stand with you, and I will not stop until you feel embraced in our city. And I encourage you to vote out those who threaten our community. To the opposition, your intimidation tactics will not deteriorate me. In fact, young folks like myself will be your biggest political nightmare.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Yes. Were you and your supporters responsible for the mailings that went out this past week?
I don't know who's behind that.
You don't?
No, sir.
Okay.
Hi, Commissioners. David Norland, Salina, 608 East Republic. I saw a T-shirt the other day. I'm wearing one, so it's legitimate to sort of advertise what your perspective might be. T-shirt in this case said, and he was quoting, no doubt, Ronald Reagan, that government is not the solution, it's the problem. Well, I'm here to say that although I recognize that there is a discussion about that government, without government, we would have a lot more problems. And so they, and you in this case, are a solution. And I'm here in support of the statement of the League of Women Voters and all the aforementioned groups. I'm specifically wearing a T-shirt about ending gun violence in support of and with moms who demand action to end gun violence. And I use it as just one illustration of how the lack of action on the part of governments, in my opinion and in the opinion of many, have led to the outright death and destruction of many, and the severe wounding and difficult recovery of many people who did not die and aren't a statistic in gun violence, but whose lives have been unalterably changed by that. So I know that the proclamation did not do that kind of damage, but it did do damage both to you personally, each of you, and to the commission in terms of reputation. But you can be a solution to that, and you can reestablish a connection in not just this way, but in many ways with the public. I know that all of us in the public can be a little irritating at times, but pertinent to Ms. Hansen's comments, that if we can have honest dialogue, personal dialogue, direct dialogue, where there's an openness, which I know is difficult, but as a governing body and as individuals, you have a responsibility and a right, and you can take power in doing that in this community as Mayor Crawford said to bring the unity that we have had back and to underwrite it. So I hope that you will carefully consider that. Thank you for your service. It isn't easy. I think the session today illustrated the kind of specifics that you deal with that probably most of the public is not aware of, whether it's 7,500 square feet or 2,500. You know, public safety versus liberty. You know, and I know that's just a Cliff's Notes of the kind of problems that you deal with, and my respect to you for doing that. But I ask you sincerely to reconsider your actions and make movements in the other direction that proclamation's resolution did. Thank you.
Ben Winholtz, 202 South Estates. I wasn't here 2 meetings ago, which was 6 weeks ago, when the commission approved the acceptance of a grant for the river project. The total dollars needed to make this project happen, according to media and leaders of the Friends of the River, is anywhere from $27 million to $37 million. It seems that all is wanted by everyone involved, as the Friends of the River have stated by name, is the centerpiece for the downtown, known as the 4th Street Plaza. Considering that the city spent $900,000 alone for a small percentage of trail around YMCA, $37 million won't even come close to cleaning the river, making it flow all the 7 miles, and having lighted trails for the distance. That's not even including the 7 bridges. I don't think that $100 million will cover that total cost with contingencies. And even if it does, if you can make it work by doing things like transferring money from other department funds to the river project, just like you did with $500,000 of street funds transferred to the 4th Street Plaza area for the railroad tracks. The ultimate question is, how is the city going to take care of 14 miles of riverbank? That's 1 mile less than from here to Lindsburg. 7 miles of lighted trails, 500 feet of sediment basin, 7 bridges, a river garage that's needed, canoe and kayak launches, 35 storm drains openings that will have catch nets and neutralizing stations for trash, oil, antifreeze fuel, and road salt from the streets that drain into it. Where's all this money for the maintenance going to come from? Since the 0.40 sales tax that we voted for in 2016 is supposed to end in 2036, or will it? Since the 0.35 sales tax increase for the water park was supposed to sunset in 2020, and it was transferred to the river project. How can we, the people, vote for a sales tax to end in 10 to 20 years, and then you guys just keep on keeping going and transfer it to something else? It seems like that everyone's excited about the finished product only, and that's the downtown 4th Street Plaza. They don't care about anything else. As was shown at the meeting that I missed, by applause by those in attendance that were there, for you guys to vote for the taxpayer money that you accepted, which is against the rules applied to this meeting in regards to applause, cheering, and or clapping. And I don't think they were reprimanded for doing it. So it looks to me like it's like the good old boy thing coming around again. Thank you.
Norman Mantle, Salina. Mayor, why don't you resign in the best interest of the city of Salina? How many more controversies are you going to cause? Are you competing with the former mayor? I addressed that former mayor on the same issue. The controversy you caused. So does he. Are you trying to beat his record? Looks like it. In the best interest of the city and the citizens of Salina, resign. Restore some respectability to this governing body.
Hi, Corey Sherman North of 656 Highland, and I'm with the Salina Moms Who Demand Action for Gun Sense. And I'm here to, as a group who has experienced the alternative to the city proclamations that we used to have. I'd like to thank former mayors Hoppick and Davis for supporting our Wear Orange National Gun Violence Prevention Day recognitions in past years, and the city commissions who allowed that. This year, we were told that we needed to do an alternative where we took out every wording connected to the city, and that we were to go in another room all by ourselves and give the proclamation to no one. We didn't engage with anyone in the city. I guess it was recorded, but it seemed pretty pointless, so we won't be doing that again. We do urge you to go back to the proclamations that we used to enjoy. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to clarify that we did not eliminate the proclamation process. We reformatted it, and that will go out over the same distribution in the media as every other meeting. And my initial proposal was to limit the number of proclamations. We were getting 3, 4, and 5 every meeting, and that was too many. And I was told that we have to take everything or nothing. So we reformatted the process. Give it a chance to work. That's all I'm asking. And I would also like to say the county commission meets, Salina County Commission meets here every Tuesday. Their meetings only last about an hour. You're free to take your proclamation to them. So, what
we're doing on video now, though, is not the same proclamation process that we had, in that there's nothing read on behalf of the city. So we did tweak the process some.
That was part of the
Right.
That was part of the agreement that we would, on legal advice, take the city's endorsement out.
Right. I just, when you said that we didn't get rid of it, technically we got rid of it. We gutted a lot of it, but I mean, there's a way for citizens to proclaim something. It's just that it's not coming from the mayor's seat.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we have an executive session. Does anyone need a break? How long do we need?
25 minutes. 25 minutes, sorry. I turned my mic on halfway through that statement.
Mayor Longbine. Excuse me. Mayor Longbine, I move the City Commission recess into executive session for 25 minutes to discuss with legal counsel confidential legal considerations relating to points of negotiation with Salina Destination Development, LLC, regarding Phase 2 of the city's multifamily housing project, based upon the need for consultation with an attorney for the public body, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship pursuant to KSA 75-4319B2. The open meeting will resume. We'll resume in this room at 5:48.
So you said 25 minutes?
Yes, 25.
It would be 5:43. Or 44 by the time we get in there. Yeah.
Are we going to take a break?
25 plus
Need a
20.
break?
If you make it 17:45, that gives us 2 minutes.
Okay, we'll resume in this room at 5:45.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were doing a 5-minute break.
We got a second?
Second.
Okay, we have motion and a second to recess into executive session for 25 minutes to discuss legal confidential considerations with Salina Destination LLC. We will resume in this room at 5:45. All in favor, say aye.
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 Mayor and Commission, in addition to yourselves, in attendance will be myself, Assistant City Manager Sean Hennessy, City Legal Counsel Greg Bankson, Community Development Director Lauren Driscoll, and we do not anticipate taking action when we return.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we are back in session. We have no action to take at this point, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.